All right, friends, it's T-Man, and we're back with a video on Tanner Schuck again, the gym lifting, recruiting, fitness slave. So we're going to react to his video. So Tanner Schuck says, looks maxing is bullshit, and it's ruining men. Yeah, okay.
Let me tell you something the internet's too scared to say. Looks maxing is bullshit. And these TikTok gurus like Clavicular and Dylan McKnight, they're not helping young men.
Dylan McKnight isn't a looks maxer. I don't know about Clavicular. Why doesn't he do a real video on looks maxers? They're really just based on raw meat transformation, eating the natural food transformation, raw meat. That's all they're really doing.
They're frying your brains. You don't.
No, they're not frying your brain, no. They're just eating raw meat and showing you the transformation from eating raw natural food, going from a domesticated pansy of a man to a normal man, a masculine man. Yeah,
You need the perfect jawline. You don't need Greek god proportions. You don't need
like Chuck. He's a feminized man on the peasant slave food diet and laboring like crazy in some crazy gym, man. Anyway,
to turn yourself into some pretty boy obsessing over your eyebrows.
yeah, I don't know about pretty boy. I mean, if you eat raw meat, what does that have to do with pretty boy? But okay. I don't know why you're bringing these two comical characters. They're not looks maxers.
I don't know when the hell this being a man got replaced by being a beauty pageant contestant.
Well, because they don't want to be feminized like you with that nasty ass looking face. You know what I mean? Beat up face, that domesticated face on the peasant slave food diet. I mean, look at you. You look like an alien, dude. Come on, you're so unattractive. I mean, where's the aesthetics? Where's the dimorphism? You look feminized.
Every comment now is dudes asking, bro.
I know. He's going to pretend that he's masculine by lifting weights, okay?
Is my mandible projecting enough? How can I fix my cheekbones? Seriously, what the f? And these
He's projecting.
look maxing clowns, they've got you thinking if you don't have a movie star jawline, your life is over. These guys put out bullshit content projecting their own insecurity.
Those guys aren't really looks maxing guys. I don't know what they're doing, man. They're not really part of looks maxing community. I don't know what you're talking about.
For profit. And the worst part.
See, he brings up these two clowns, and this guy's a clown too on the left there. He's not even part of looks maxing, some bodybuilding bullshit, whatever. He brings up the worst people. Man, why don't you bring up some real looks maxers?
Part is that dudes are listening to this nonsense. Having the perfect face is bullshit. And
having the perfect face is bullshit. Well, if you ate your natural food, you would have a perfect face. Because nature doesn't make mistakes unless you're on peasant slave food diet. You're not developing like you. Look at your face.
You know what's more bullshit? Thinking that perfection even exists. Men
Of course it does. Look at nature. It's perfect. There isn't one animal out there that isn't imperfect. Unless they ate something they weren't supposed to. But in overall, they're eating their natural food, which each animal's supposed to. They look perfect. Except for humans. They're eating stuff that doesn't belong in their bodies, and then they end up looking like you. That's why you're suffering from mental illness, trying to go to the gym, trying to reverse this domestication, what happened to you. He's coping big time, man, because he can't handle looking at himself in the mirror.
are meant to be imperfect, scarred.
I love this. Men are meant to be imperfect. No, they're not. Men are meant to be perfect. If you eat your mom's drug addict, peasant slave food, estrogenic diet, what did you expect? Your mom fed it to you. She shoved it down your throat. It doesn't affect her, the estrogenic diet, but it affects you because you're a male. They should have put you on a meat diet, but they prefer to put you on a peasant slave food diet, which you're still kind of eating, I've noticed. Look at these guys, man. These are slaves, dude. Just like a Tanner Schuck, he's a slave. Imperfect. This is restarted.
Weathered. It's okay to be rough around the edges.
Yes, weathered and beat up and scarred. Yes, this is the way you should be. Yeah. Yeah, women find that really attractive, man. You being scarred, weathered, and beat up. Yeah. And ugly to shit. Okay. And your face all beat up. Looking like a car ran over a car tire.
In fact, you should be. But here's the truth you'll never hear from
should be, yes, okay.
the pretty boy TikTok crowd. Most of you don't need jaw surgery or any kind of surgery to augment.
Why would they need surgery? You need natural food. You don't need surgery. So he shows these clowns.
Your physique. You need self-respect. And self-respect isn't built in the mirror. It's built in the way you live your life. If you really want to...
Self-respect, people will respect you if you're well developed. It's not something you have to go out and look for. See what I mean? They respect tall built men, but they don't respect men that didn't develop.
Looks max, start here. Have enough self-respect to take care of yourself. Because if you love yourself, you'll respect yourself.
Yeah, but he doesn't love himself. That's why he doesn't respect himself. That's why he goes to the gym. Look, man, a lot of majority of people do not respect themselves. Why else would you go to a gym and destroy yourself? Gyms destroy. It's based on body destruction. If you didn't know that already. Anything you do laboring is body destruction. You're destroying yourself. You know what I mean? It's crazy. No animal out in nature would want to destroy themselves. Only a human, because they're sick, because they've been driven to. They've been conditioned and driven to do this. And especially on a drug-addicted, estrogenic, peasant slave food diet. Get it, dude? Yeah. Look at him squeezing here. It's just crazy. They're not interested. They're interested in the face. Women are interested in your face. Your face is your personality. It's your character. It's everything. If you have an ugly face, they see it as an evil face, and they'll treat you that way. See that? So when they look at him, these women, they see him as evil. That's horrible, man.
And if you respect yourself, you'll take care of yourself. And if you take care of yourself...
Yeah, does he take care of himself? Does he respect himself enough to eat raw animal products? No. He doesn't give a shit. He wants to drink coffee and do a bunch of weird shit.
You'll live with discipline. Discipline is the highest form of self-love there is.
Oh, yeah, discipline. Discipline is for slaves, the highest form, of love. Yeah, okay, whatever, man.
It's loving yourself enough to give yourself everything you actually...
If you loved yourself, then you wouldn't torture yourself, torture your body. Your body was given to you to keep you alive so you can create more DNA. That's the meaning of life.
Want, not the fake Instagram filtered bullshit you think you want. If you want to be a man...
Well, because they ate the peasant slave food diet, and at this point I guess they can't reverse it, or they're too lazy to eat raw meat. Clavicular and this other dude, they don't want to eat raw meat. It's not my fault.
Not a mannequin. Here's your real looks maxing checklist. Be disciplined. Be in shape.
Slaves are disciplined. Be in shape. If you eat raw animal products, you're always in shape.
Be a man of your word. Be organized.
Be a man of your word. Yeah, I don't know. That's for slaves, okay. Be organized, slave.
Have an agenda. Respect other people's time.
Again, agenda, respect time. This is all slavery, man. None of this stuff would exist out in nature. Just something you're doing in this world here. None of these things are really that important.
Time and your own time. Get your money right. Don't live it.
Yeah, get your money right. Like money exists out in nature, man. No animals have pockets. They don't carry any change around, do they? Do they carry passports out there too? They must carry passports and everything, right? They need passports across borders and everything, these animals. Only humans need that. Only humans need it because they live in a fantasy world. The only free animal in this world, free, that has freedom, are animals out in nature. They're free. See that? They're out in nature, they're free. They're free, man. Only humans are prisoners of their own making. Don't live in debt. Yeah, that's how they enslave you as well, debt. Okay.
Debt like a dumbass. Be reliable. Lead your family. Protect.
Oh, yeah, be reliable. Okay, protect and provide. Well, that's something you would do out in nature, wouldn't you? Yeah.
Protect.
It's a natural processes.
Provide. And for fuck's sake, have good hygiene.
Have good hygiene. You don't have to work at having good hygiene if you're on raw animal products. You have good hygiene.
That's what makes a man attractive. Women don't give a shit about your zygomatic arch.
That's what makes men attractive? That doesn't make men attractive. Not to women. They still have natural instincts. You understand me? In the natural, in this world, whatever. In the real world.
They want a guy who can lead, protect, and not have a meltdown because his jawline looks less sharp in warm lighting. You want real imperfection?
I don't know, dude, because when they're attracted to you women, they really love you, they're going to do anything for you, believe me. But you've never found a woman like that yet that actually loves you for you. Because they're not attracted to you. They're not attracted to this, whatever it is you're doing.
Look at me. One leg's bigger than the other. I have a thick core from heavy lifting.
Yeah, they see that as imperfection. It's a genetic thing.
I have chest fat.
They see that you're lifting and doing these things. They see you as artificial, fake. You're a kind of an unnatural being for them. It's something fake. They're attracted to natural males, not something unnatural. So you have to be very careful with what you're doing here.
Sometimes I get acne on my face and my back from sweating.
You get acne because your peasant slave food diet causes that. It's toxicity, toxins leaving your skin in the form of pimples.
My ass off training. I don't care about looking like a pretty boy. I care about horsepower.
He's lying. That's a lie. You do care. Everybody does. It's human nature to care.
I care about strength. I care about being.
Yeah. I care about being good at lifting weights. You know what I mean?
Being a man who can at least defend and protect his family if shit really hits the fan. And meanwhile,
yeah, if put to the test, you'll protect your family, and you won't be able to protect them if somebody had it out for them, because they'll just do something before you could ever do anything about it. So you're fantasizing, man.
Some of you are crying because your jawline isn't optimal. Bro,
they're not crying just because their jawline isn't optimal. They're all suffering because they're domesticated on a domesticated peasant slave food, estrogenic diet.
Get the fuck out of here. If you really want to be attractive to a woman, be a fucking man. Lead her. Take care of her.
Be a man. Lead her. Take care of her. Yeah. Okay. She'll follow your lead if she's in love with you. She's not in love with you, dude. You're looking for a world of hurt.
Provide, protect, prove you'll be a strong father.
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah.
Prove you'll raise kids who will contribute to society, not leech from it. Women.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Children that will provide for society, not leech from it. Yeah, good slaves for society, yes. Great good slaves, yes.
Want a man with presence, not a guy with a dad bod who's too fat and sick to play with his own kids.
You want a man with presence, not a dad bod. Too sick to play with the kids, but you're sick and they're sick. And they see this as being sick.
And this is why guys like Clavicular and Dylan McKnight are poisoning young men. They teach you that attractiveness is...
Well, those guys are goofy. They're lifting and they're doing weird shit. They're just, I don't know. Goofy.
It's a math equation. Real attractiveness is simple. Be worthy of respect. Be worthy to
Be worthy of respect.
Procreate with. Not because of your...
Procreate with? Respect, eh? Be worthy of respect. How do you be worthy? Do what's natural. That's how you become worthy. Do what's natural.
Face. Because of your presence. You want to look, Max?
No, it's not just because of your presence. Your presence could be repelling. You're repelling them. You're not attracting them. To attract women, you need to be attractive, and you need to be developed to be attractive. On a peasant slave food diet, eating tofu, rice, and bullshit, whatever you've been doing and lifting, doesn't make you attractive, dude. It makes you more unattractive. Whatever you're fucking doing there. Drinking coffee and doing weird shit, because I've seen your videos. That doesn't impress people, making yourself ugly by lifting and eating toxic food.
Okay, here's the secret the internet won't tell you. Command respect. Speak the truth, even when people hate it. Be Jack.
Speak the truth. Well, I think you should speak whatever is on your mind, I guess. Command respect. Yeah, it's like, don't be fake, right? Speak your mind, whatever. Don't be fake. Command respect. You don't command respect. Be jacked. Yeah, okay.
Be strong. Have integrity. Ignore haters.
You don't be strong or be jacked. You understand me? You don't do any of those things. You eat natural food and you'll be normal. Have integrity. Ignore haters. I don't know. Are they hating? They're not hating. They're jealous. Whatever. Have integrity. Okay, whatever.
Ignore anyone.
This is all slave mentality here. Ignore anyone you'd never take advice from. Well, you don't have to ignore anybody, but you don't have to take advice. Are they giving you? Why are they giving you advice? Are you asking for it, or are they just giving it to you? You don't have to take any advice from anybody.
one you'd never take advice from. Treat others how you want to be treated. If you respect yourself first, people will feel it the second you walk into a room. If you don't respect yourself, it doesn't matter how handsome you are.
It doesn't matter if you treat people how you want to be treated. Honesty doesn't pay in this world. Here's the thing. You want to be honest with people with the truth, right? And so they can treat you the same way back. Well, guess what? You're going to be in a world, oh man, you're going to be in for a big surprise. A world of hate, bro. Get it? A world of hate. Because that's not how it works. You understand me? They can take your honesty as being hate. You get it, dude? And so they're going to hate you for being brutally honest with them. Because now you shattered their beliefs. Their beliefs have been shattered with facts and truths, which they can't handle the truth, and therefore they're going to hate your guts. But also, you telling people that they're ugly and shouldn't focus on facial things. This is dishonest. You're being dishonest. You care about your looks. Why are you lying? Why are you going to the gym? See, here's the thing. He's going to the gym, right? And then he's like squeezing his muscles, going on. He says, "I'm not interested in looks." Then why are you posing? Why are you showing abs and low body fat? A bunch of shit. None of this makes any sense. Why are you working out? Because you care about looks. The only problem is you can't change your face because it's ugly. Because it's ugly, because it's mutated, because of peasant slave food diet. You're fucking. You've been what do you call it? You've been domesticated.
Pretty boy bitch. Looks maxing the way it's
Again, pretty boy bitch. Why are you going to the gym to be a pretty boy and lift weights?
Online is shallow as fuck. It's a distraction. It's pollution for your brain.
Nobody sees what's under your clothes, and nobody sees what you lift. They only see your face in public.
Real looks maxing is toxic masculinity. Real looks maxing is being manly as fuck.
Real looks maxing is about looking good, is about eating raw animal products and transforming, yeah.
Real looks maxing is discipline, accountability, honesty, strength, purpose.
No, it's not. That's slavery. That's slavery.
Bring back men who look like they've lived. Bring back real men with a good moral compass and a good heart. Bring back purpose. Bring back strength.
There aren't any men. They're all domesticated on peasant slave food diet. There aren't any. Not even me, not nobody. Now, we're trying our best now because we're trying to get off the domesticated peasant slave food diet to become more masculine, demasculine version of ourselves because we've been demasculinized. You understand me, dude? This is not going to change you by lifting a weight.
Stop chasing perfection. Start chasing discipline. Start chasing.
You don't have to chase perfection. Perfection will find you once you start eating your natural raw animal products.
Strength. Start chasing purpose. That's how you really look, Max.
Your purpose is to create more DNA and die. That's your purpose in life. It's not lifting weights, acting, pretending, making up crazy things, screaming and yelling.
That's how you become a fucking man. And if you're a man who wants to do...
What do you mean that's how you become a man? You are a man. You are a man. If you want to call yourself a man, you're a human being. You are a man. There's females and then there's males. You're a male.
Looks maxing the right way and actually wants to get strong and jacked, apply for one.
That's not looks maxing. Wanting to get jacked is not looks maxing.
One custom coaching. I'll put that link here next to my head.
Yeah, he's going to coach you to be a slave, man, a lifting slave. You're going to get zero progress. If you buy his program or do any of his stuff, you're just going to be zero progress like he is. You're going to be like him. So look at him. See what he's doing, and this is what you're going to get, the same results. A zero, get it? You're going to be very unattractive. He's going to make you very unattractive.
We'll jump on a free call and discuss if working together makes sense. You have nothing to lose and potentially everything to gain. And if you have...
Of course you do. Yeah, sure.
Already, like, share, and subscribe. And watch...
Yes, I'm on it right away. He's got another video just before this one. It's the foods that got me strong, not fitness diet. One thing, he does eat a lot of animal products, which I like. It's a good thing. but they're cooked, but he still eats peasant slave food diet, which is hard to transform yourself. You really transform on a raw animal diet. Just look at the real looks maxing community. They've all transformed on raw animal diet. That's how they got their transformations. They didn't do it eating cooked meat or whatever, or plants or anything like that. I'll see you in the next one, friends. Don't you think about that? Like, subscribe, support the channel. Tana Shtuk. Yes. He's a poster child of domestication. See you later.
Hello everybody, I hope you guys had a good holiday. Mine wasn't too bad, it was actually pretty good. I was actually pretty satisfied. And today I wanted to talk about things about the upcoming year of 2026. And I want to talk about 10 things that you should not do in 2026. Now, life can be such a big pain in the ass, but you know, these tips should be able to help you to make sure your life gets a little bit easier, because I know this helped me a lot. But anyways, the first tip I want to give out to y'all is do not assume anything. This is a big common mistake that a lot of us make in our lives, and man, assuming anything or just every little thing is actually a really bad situation and a really bad thing to do. Because I remember when I was a kid, right, like when I was like 16 years old, I remember I had a friend that actually was accused of doing something pretty terrible and pretty nasty. Right at the time, it was some petty, dumb, stupid drama, but I remember it was about like my friend doing like a bunch of like fucked up things like drugs and also hanging out with the wrong crowd by, you know, actually vandalizing property and stuff like that. And it was really tough to like witness this story, but my dumb ass actually believed the story and took that person's side whatsoever, right? Like instantly. It was a bad thing I did when I was younger, obviously, because I remember I actually lost my friend over this situation because it was so bad where I assumed something so stupid and small from a stranger that was not even my friend. And even though, like, it was really bad drama and all this crazy fucking gossip, that I really did mess myself up with that lesson, because I remember trying to make things right with my buddy, and it just never was the same. Now, obviously, like I said, this was in high school and shit like that, but, you know, it really does go to affect you for the rest of your life if you let it. And assuming things in general is just like horrible, because like it gives you a very stubborn way of looking at things. It gives you tunnel vision, and it just makes you, you know, make really dumb decisions sometimes. So if you guys can in 2026, do not assume anything. Obviously, it's been a long time since this incident happened, but man, there's so many people that still do this bullshit a lot, and it's really difficult for people to understand and grasp. The one thing I should have done back in high school is I should have went up to him and have him explain his side of the story, you know? Have him explain everything that went down and whatnot, and see what's consistent and what's not. Even though he was my buddy, I probably would have listened to him if I did, but honestly, you know, bad judge of character, and I really fucked up, dude. I was a bad friend for that. Every choice we make in our lives will have consequences whenever we like it or not. Now, this next tip is actually really silly, but it's honestly very true, because this happens a lot, is always pay your bills on time, because if you don't, bro, you're gonna be homeless. Now, obviously, this happens more like often than you think with people, where some people will get into a cushion where they'll be able to be able to miss a payment to get some leniency from like these companies and corporations that are able to keep their stuff on, right? Unfortunately, some people will be able to pay, be able to pay their light bills and stuff a little later, because some people get comfortable of letting that shit pile up, and it becomes a bad habit. And that's how people get into bad situations where they're not paying their bills on time, or they'll pay it right when they threaten to shut everything off. Now, when I was younger, I did do this at the very beginning, but I quickly fixed that because it's really stupid, you know? Like, you just don't know what could really happen. Like, one day you could actually get your light shut off, or you can actually lose everything. Like I said, it's basic common sense, but bro, like, you know, it happens if you're a little late on a bill, but do not make it a fucking habit, dude. Always prioritize your shit, because there's so many adults and so many people in this world that are not been taught this crap, or they just don't simply care. And unfortunately, in a perfect world, it would be fine, but unfortunately, it's not the way that is at all with a lot of people. And for some reason, some people think that racking the utility bill up until they have to really pay it is saving money, but in reality, you're actually spending more, because, you know, it's not being on auto pay or something. You gotta be careful, bro, or else, you know, the utility guy is gonna knock on your door and demand you to pay up, or he's gonna shut your shit off. It's really sad, but it does happen. It's happened to me that one time, man, and I paid it immediately, and I was like, yep, never again. For life lesson number 3, or tip number 3, is if you have something to your friend or partner that's bothering you, just tell them. Yes, it can happen where a lot of us are having that one urge to like keep our mouth shut about this one friend or this one partner that's doing something wrong. But you know, if you keep like biting your tongue on certain things and not being able to tell them directly, it's actually going to resent your partner or friend more. And honestly, this happens so often with so many people. I even have a friend that was like this for a while until I like taught him and showed that it's okay to tell me harsh things if you need to, because some people may not be able to take it, and it's kind of an immature environment that a lot of society has built up. But at the same time, bro, if you just be direct in a non-toxic way and just like politely criticize what could like that's bothering you, or what could be better with them as your friend, or how they're treating you, that's not really a sign of disrespect. Like, it's just, you know, being able to set boundaries in a healthy manner, because we all are human beings and we all need boundaries sometimes. And it can be a big pain in the ass if we don't express these things. It's one of the most unhealthy things you could do in general with your friends, partner, or just in general with yourself, because, you know, one day you're just going to explode and blow up, and you're just not going to be very happy with your partner, and then they're just not going to be happy with you, and it's going to escalate and get really nasty. And you don't want any of that if you really do value those type of friends in your life, because if you don't, man, it's just gonna fuck your world up pretty bad. Now, assuming if you have really good friends, most of them would understand and just try to be better, you know? But sometimes it can do you a favor sometimes too, where if your friend's actually a toxic piece of crap, then it may be the best to kind of let them go and go separate ways. But hopefully it doesn't get to that route. But there's some people that do have to, you know, take that leap and risk in order to see what type of person they truly are. It's a sad reality, but you know, the good thing is though, like, it really goes show how good your friends will be if you have some really good friends in your life. Now, this one is also not taken as seriously, but bro, I swear, if you choose your circle carefully of what type of friends and stuff you have in your life, it really does spiral into what type of habits you can have too with these buddies. Now, like, there's some friends that actually will be able to build you up and give you some growth and a good mindset, and then there's just some people that's just straight up going to tear your ass down and make you do less to do what you want to do. Because sometimes, bro, there's some friends in our lives that will influence us to do either really good things or some of the worst things you can imagine. Like, there's some friends I had back in childhood that one time influenced me to steal something from the dollar store. Now, at the time, it was a pretty big deal to me, but at the time, it's like really small now. But still, it's like if I kept hanging out with this type of friends or the wrong crowd and shit, that I would legit probably would have stolen a lot more things and got myself in a lot more trouble. Because I do remember I did actually do that and stole something from the dollar store as a kid, and I actually did get in trouble and banned from the store for at least like a month and a half. And I learned my lesson that day, and I honestly stopped hanging out with those people because I realized that there are some good people in this world. And just because they are your quote-unquote friend does not mean they always have the best intentions sometimes. But the good thing is, though, like, once you pick that good, like, circle of people, it's best to try to keep it as small as you can, man, because sometimes introducing yourself to new people can give you new opportunities, but at the same time, if you don't choose it properly or carefully, it will backfire. So it just really depends. But if you have a great judge of character, or you can develop a sense of good judgment of character, you'll learn that the world's not so bad if you can just find it. It's definitely more rare to find some really good, genuine people, but bro, it's out there. You just gotta find it. When it comes to a lot of my friends, I prefer to have friends that are very clean. They don't like to smoke a lot of tree and stuff like that, that they're sober. And, you know, alcohol here and there is fine. Having them drink all the time is like kind of a big red flag to me if it's like out of control and they can't, you know, handle their problems very well and they're alcoholics. But for the most part, most of my friends do that pretty well. Like everything on a casual level is fine as long as like it doesn't affect their lifestyle or everyday lives. But when it comes to like, you know, people trying to influence you to do these bad things or just, you know, just getting out of control and just being disrespectful and then getting all hostile and then trying to hold you back in life with their lifestyle and habits just because you're their friend. Yeah, that's where it's like a huge fucking issue, and that's where things kind of take for the worst. Because the crazy part is, I have done drugs before in my life, and thankfully I've never gotten hooked on any of it. Because oh my god, bro, I couldn't imagine getting hooked on any of these things. I guess I don't have that type of addictive personality, but at the same time, I just never picked these things up ever again because it just did not make me feel very good. Another thing that you should always do, but you should really take advantage of this in 2026, is pick your battles very wisely. When it comes to arguments or battles or anything that we have in our lives, man, sometimes, bro, that person is just simply not worth it. And there's a lot of us that will tend to escalate a lot of things unnecessarily, and you know, and sometimes it could either really backfire or sometimes it could really hurt us and have us regret a lot of things. Now, I'm not saying that you should never escalate anything, but bro, like just make sure that when you are escalating something or defending yourself or standing up for yourself in something, just know that make sure it's worth standing up for. Because there's some things in our lives where if you stand up for something so small and stupid and blow it out of proportion, like it may not be even worth it. Like the biggest example of this is like I have some people in my life that just simply do not like me, right? Like there's some people that are absolute haters in my life. For some odd reason, they just don't simply like me. Now you could escalate it and be like, bro, why don't you like me? Blah 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 blah. I could beat your ass. Blah 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 blah. But, you know, what type of good shit does that even do? Like, you have people that you may not even know very well, like, live in your head rent-free, and you should not, like, stoop down to their fucking level. Because I've learned that, too, where I had bullies in my past not like me for whatever reason. And another thing, too, is, with real life, is I had a coworker literally just not like me at all. And then my coworker meets a friend of mine that he happened to work with, and this person's like literally saying how much he did not like me and then all this crap. And I actually got to a point where it's been so long since I even worked with this dude, because it was like an interaction, like a one-time thing, that I didn't even know who he was until he told me like where we worked at and shit. And I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense, because I didn't like this person either, but I didn't simply just kept my distance and moved on. But holy fuck, the fact that some people are willing to go down to that type of level to, you know, be living in your head rent free is fucking crazy, dude. And, you know, I'm a pretty easygoing, pretty respectful individual. I don't really tend to have beef with people because I find that shit a waste of time. But man, like some people will find a reason why to have beef with you and be miserable within themselves. And it sucks. I was such a big people pleaser back in the day that I wanted even people that did not like me to like me, because I just didn't understand why they were hating on me. And then as you get older, like I said, you realize it was never me, it was simply them. And once you kind of learn that life lesson, you kind of realize that, yeah, this shit is just a waste of time. And, you know, you can just move on with your life into better things, because, you know, escalating stupid things like that with like coworkers or small beef with people that are toxic and hostile, just simply you know, a waste of time. Now, this next one sounds very cliche, but it is one of the most truest things ever, and it's do not procrastinate on your dreams. Now, there's a lot of people that will say they want to become one thing and they become a dreamer and not a doer. And it's fine if you have dreams or you just don't really take it that seriously, but bro, I swear, if you do have something that you can realistically achieve, man, go for that shit. Because if you don't, it could actually fuck you up too for your life, or you'll have a lot of regret. Because man, living in your comfort zone, not be able to do the hard things to be able to get to your dreams, it's definitely, you know, one of the hardest things to go through, but it's honestly one of the best things ever, and it's worth it because it's a growth stage in your life. And it helps you build better character for yourself, and you realize what you really want out of your life. Because there's some people who live on fucking, you know, autopilot their whole lives, and then they wonder, what if I did this and did that? Don't always regret your mistakes in your past, but dude, do not ever procrastinate on any of your fucking goals or dreams, because I used to have a friend like that where this person would procrastinate on their goals and dreams to the point where they're already almost 25 and they're still just saying shit like, yeah, I just want to I want to start that YouTube channel. I'll get around to it. And it's been like 5 years almost. And I'm like, hell no. Because I realize now, as I was making content for such a long time consistently, is it took me almost fucking like 10 to 7 years around there to kind of get some type of attention on YouTube, just to even know how it works. Because you realize that there's a lot of things you don't know that does not work until you try it. And it's honestly a good thing too, because then you'll know exactly what you want to do out of your dreams or goals. People really do underestimate the amount of time a certain skill takes for you to be able to create something or get to a certain point in something. Like, you know, some skills or passions take like almost like over thousands and thousands of hours for certain things. Like learning how to edit videos properly, how to play an instrument, or how to even fucking, you know, make good quality like commentary and shit, or how to talk to people socially, for fuck's sake. It's honestly a interesting thing how much we invest our time in. If I never did like do anything like that, I have no idea where I would be today. So honestly, definitely take this one like very seriously. Now, this is a skill that a lot of people really sleep on, but it's actually very deadly and very valuable in your life if you really need it, and it's helping yourself as much as possible. This one is one of the most important things to learn because, bro, there's things in our lives where we can't always have other people help us, and that's fine. It's okay to ask for help, but it's also good to learn and educate ourselves on new things to help ourselves as much as possible in case we get into a really bad situation. Like, the best examples I could think about this is, like, you know, learning how to, like, find work outside of a job where you can find gigs or something to be able to work in order to get, you know, be able to get yourself off your feet to get extra money really quickly. Or finding other ways to, like, you know, educate yourself about certain things about the world without having a school or someone teach you, like going to the libraries and reading about books and shit. This is something I definitely would need to work on myself more, but man, I realized when I was reading certain things, like certain articles or books, is wow, this is actually very good for your brain, for one. And two, it's like very awesome to actually, you know, educate yourself on certain things without having anyone try to rely on you. It's pretty fucking dope, honestly. And everyone learns in different ways, so definitely take advantage of all the opportunities in your life, too, that is also given to you if you have it. Like, I remember I was having issues with, like, money in a bank as well, too. And the best thing I did for myself was I got up, actually requested a new, like, bank account and everything at a different bank, and I actually transferred my shit over there, too. And the worst part is with a lot of people is, it may seem small, but there's some people that will complain about, like, oh man, my bank accounts are very bad because this bank treats me like shit. And then they just do nothing about it, and it gets really annoying very quickly. But what I did, you know, I went ahead and tried to fix the problem as much as possible, and it ended up being fixed, which is amazing. Or, you know, there's some people that will bitch about their stuff in their apartment breaking down and then not getting it fixed or not doing something about it. Or the best example is, you know, when my apartment was actually messing up so bad, I went ahead, you know, and ended that lease early, and I was able to document everything to be able to get to my next place. Because if I never did that shit, dude, and just complained, I would have been stuck in that shitty-ass apartment still. So yes, guys, if you really can, help yourself as much as you can, because you'll realize how great and powerful that skill is when you really need to do it, because it's really fucking awesome. Now, technically, I did complain to my apartment landlords and shit, but I meant like complaining to like just the roommates and not taking action, you know? That's what I mean. But yeah, it's crazy how like what type of voices can be heard if you just, you know, just call like housing authority and shit like that. Thank God that's over. Now, this lesson is a tough one that I did learn this year, and I will not be definitely doing this next year, and it's do not buy things out of desperation. Now, obviously, I've told you guys about this situation a lot, but bro, when I impulse bought that stupid fucking lemon car I had just to try to get a different car because my other car broke down because I was stacking a lot of money, it ended up hurting me in the long run because financially I did not fully recover from that situation. Now my financial situation's a bit better, but dude, it set me back for at least like 6 to 7 months. And it was a hard lesson learned. It was my fault, and man, it was like one of the hardest lessons I've learned in my fucking 20s as well too, because I never had anything like that happen to me where I had like a lemon backfire on me like that, because usually most of the cars I do buy are pretty good, but bro, sometimes when you're really desperate for something, you have a bad judge of character sometimes, or a bad judge of things. And when the crazy part is, I did have someone that was with me, you know, to help me look at the car, but this person didn't know very much about cars, or did not tell me things directly how they truly felt. They were just like, "You're an adult, you can do what you want, blah 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 blah." But I'm just like, bro, like, no, tell me exactly straight up if I should be doing this or not, because I may not know everything, but fuck, dude, cars can be very tricky. And unfortunately, this car I bought, you know, started fucking up after a week. And that's hard to tell because, you know, you never know until, like, you had a car for a while. And some people know what they're selling, but just won't tell you. And the worst part about that situation, too, was I kept trying to repair it at the repair shops constantly. And obviously, it ate all my money, too. And that was stupid as hell. But, you know, I ended up getting a different car. And this kind of leads to this lesson is, yes, do not buy things out of desperation in general, too, because, like, I know some people that will buy some things out of desperation for things that are not even that important, and they end up getting backfired, too, or they'll fucking get a huge-ass credit card just to buy something crazy with it or whatever, you know, with wants or rent or whatever it is they need, and they get into a hole. Do not ever put yourself in a hole if you don't really need to. I'm very happy that nightmare is over, and I'm very grateful to start fresh. Now, this is also a very common mistake that a lot of people do in their lives, whatever it's friends, family, or whatever, but this one is, do not rush your lifetime achievements. I'm not sure why, but there's a lot of people in my life I've dealt with or seen where, like, there's so many people that feel like they have this crazy rush to, like, get married or have kids very quickly, or even, you know, be able to travel and stuff and be able to, like, try to rush to financial wealth and success. And I'm just like, bro, take your time. I get it. Some people are, you know, want that shit out of the way, but man, like, I think it's best to do everything naturally. Now, don't ever take your life for granted and take actions with things when you need to, but man, I've noticed that there's a lot of things that you can have happen to you if you just let things happen naturally by going out and just doing shit naturally for people. Like, if you're a social butterfly, you will eventually find somebody that will, like, you know, be able to date you and love you forever and shit. Obviously, it may not be forever for a lot of people. That's fine. That's realistic, but man, like, there's a lot of people that will try to also just rush, like, you know, status for some reason. There's a lot of people that want status quickly and now. And the worst type of things that could happen to you with that type of shit is comparing yourself to others when it comes to, like, keeping up with the Jones with wants or needs. Or, you know, looking at other YouTubers and social influencers, seeing shit like, oh, why am I not rich at this age like this YouTuber? Like, I am around the age of Mr. Beast, right? And, you know, sometimes I have this crazy expectation being like, bro, why the fuck has my YouTube never gotten to this type of level yet as Mr. Beast? But obviously, you know, he's really young and I'm still really young. And it's just really unrealistic, you know? Like, not everyone's going to be like a rich millionaire by the time they're 25 and shit like that. It's very different for everybody, and we have to learn to accept that. You know that saying, you just cannot simply rush perfection. So do not let perfection ruin your life or compare yourself to some crazy, unrealistic bullshit. Not everyone's going to be a celebrity right out the gate. And the last but not least on this very long video is learn to appreciate yourself. Confidence is such a big factor in your life, and it's very important to have because there's a lot of people who just simply never had confidence in their life, and it goes to show when it comes to their performance in certain things that they want to do, or performance anxiety for, you know, like job interviews, or performance anxiety in just what they're doing at their job and work, and overthinking everything. I used to be very guilty of overthinking a lot of shit. But once you kind of realize you can let a lot of that crap go, because most people just don't simply care or realize what you're thinking about bothers you, it gets a lot easier and better. And it's actually very powerful too, because it's like, wow, I feel like I could do anything. But obviously, be realistic with it, you know, because not everyone's going to be like Spider-Man or Superman, being able to fucking fly around and shit all around New York City, because, you know, that shit's stupid. But, you know, always have that confidence though, like with your job interviews, or just confidence within yourself as a person. Like, know that you can do things right, and know that things will get better, and you know that you can get your part done of whatever you want to do or achieve. Loving yourself is also a huge thing too, because, like, it could actually build you up as a person, give you a nice growth mindset, and you just feel happier and better in general, because there's a lot of people in this world that fucking struggle with this, and it's okay, dude. And we all need to realize that no matter what corporation, company it is and whatnot, there's always people internally fighting something within themselves that's reflecting their character or themselves. And sometimes, guys, if you guys really do have that shitty ass boss that's trying to tear people down, it really says a lot about them and their character, and then not you, you know? Because you never know what they're going through, but at the same time, bro, they may not be giving themselves that type of love love and treatment that they probably should in order to better their life. So honestly, who cares what they think? Anyways, guys, I hope you guys have a very good 2026 year coming up, and I really do hope these life advice tips are helping a lot, or will help you in the foreseeable future, because some of it may be cliche, but there's a lot of it that is very important that needs to be said more often. I honestly want a lot of people to win in life and be able to find themselves and be confident and happy, because there's a lot of people in very good situations that are just simply unhappy. So I hope this helps for anyone that really needs this type of motivation or confidence, or just something to really listen to that's really important, because you never know what type of voices could be reached out to. This is the first time on this channel I actually wrote down a script and did something a little bit different with like ideas, and I hope it pays off, and I really guys hope that you guys enjoyed it. And to everybody, I hope you guys have a good new year, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.
The dark side demands sacrifice, and in Star Wars, no Sith Lord paid a greater physical price for his transformation than that of Darth Vader. We all know the image, the scorched body dragging itself through the lava ash of Mustafar, the broken man entombed in a life support system, more machine than man, the shrieking birth of Darth Vader inside a medical chamber filled with smoke and scratching metal. Vader's pain wasn't symbolic, it was constant, a torment etched in every moment, every breath. And yet, for all the agony he endured, for all the power he still wielded, Darth Vader never became what he was supposed to be. He was meant to be the most powerful Sith in galactic history. George Lucas himself once said that Anakin had the potential to be twice as powerful as Sidious, but that he never reached it. Not even close. But why? That's the question. Because Vader wasn't the only Sith to suffer grand mutilation like this. He wasn't the only one to survive the fires of failure and rebuild himself through pain. There was another who did it successfully, a forgotten enforcer of the rule of two, a Sith Lord whose injuries were brutal, but who emerged stronger than before. This Sith didn't just survive, she recommitted, reforged herself. She became a symbol of devotion to the very heart of the Sith doctrine. Her name was Darth Jean. And this is the story of two Sith Lords, both broken, both remade, and why only one of them ever truly rose to their potential. But to understand what made Darth Jean's transformation so rare, we first need to understand just how shattered Vader was. Because before he was ever the monster in black, before the breathing mask and the mechanical limbs, he was a fallen Jedi dragging himself out of the fire, and into a cage that was never meant to set him free. A cage of metal and fire. This is what Darth Vader lost. When Vader rose from that table on Coruscant, he wasn't rising as a triumphant warrior, he was rising as a corpse that had been resurrected with wires and steel. The fall of Mustafar didn't just cost him his limbs, it shattered nearly every system in his body. He was burned so severely that only a fraction of his skin could be saved. His lungs were in ruin, his vocal cords were destroyed, his eyes partially melted and scorched. He required prosthetics to just see again. Sidious salvaged what was left. But what he created wasn't just a new Sith. Not entirely. What he had here was a prisoner. His cybernetics were not advanced. They were archaic by galactic standards, and this was not by accident at all. His suit wasn't designed for mobility, it was designed for control. The servos in his limbs were powerful but crude. They made him strong but sluggish. The joints lacked fine motor control. His gloves interfered with his ability to perform complex manipulations of the Force or with the blade. His vision was restricted to narrow fields. His audio receptors filtered through sound of cold static. His connection to sensation and to the world around him was utterly dulled. Even the synthetic skin that wrapped his body caused irritation and agony. Every single step Vader took, every movement he made came with discomfort. Not just because he was injured, but because Sidious wanted him in pain. Pain was the tool of the Sith. It was supposed to make him stronger, be his teacher. But the tragedy is that while the pain sharpened Vader's hatred, it actually dulled everything else. The Vader we see after Mustafar is a juggernaut. He's brutal, unstoppable, overwhelming. But gone is the speed, the agility, the grace of Skywalker. Gone is the adaptability, the precision, the near limitless connection to the Force that once defined him. His midichlorian count, his raw potential was halved by his injuries. Entire neural pathways that once allowed him to interface with the Force on a near instinctual level were now damaged or destroyed. His presence in the Force was still overwhelming, but it was diminished. And Sidious knew this. From the very beginning, Palpatine saw that Vader had lost something vital, not just physically, but lost something in his spirit. The broken, howling Sith Lord that rose from the operating table was powerful, but not dangerous in the way that he could have been. His rage was given form, but he was also a loss, a failure, filled with grief. And somewhere in that twisted machinery and fury, the Emperor still saw something human, something that hadn't been burned away on Mustafar. And that part of Vader terrified Palpatine, because what Palpatine would come to realize over time was that Vader's greatest weakness was not the cybernetics. It wasn't the suit at all. It wasn't even his lost limbs or his halved potential. It was that Anakin Skywalker never truly died. And that weakness, that lingering attachment, would define Vader and ultimately prevent him from ever becoming what Sidious had hoped to create, a perfect monster. For all the damage Mustafar did to Vader's body, it was the damage he carried in his soul that Palpatine would come to fear the most. Because while Vader wore the armor of a Sith Lord and wielded the power few in the galaxy could ever challenge, he never fully killed the man that he once was. He never fully buried Anakin. He simply dragged him along. The Sith the Man transformation, a death of the self followed by the rebirth in the dark side. It's not enough to change your name. It's not enough to put on new armor. You have to become something else entirely. But Vader never completed that cycle. His hatred was real, his power was real, but so were his attachments, so were his regrets. He had pledged himself to the Sith while trying to keep pieces of his old self alive and well. And Sidious noticed all of it from the very beginning. Palpatine may have created the cybernetic body of Vader, but he never fully forged the mind of a Sith. The Vader he got was a being of contradiction. He was powerful, brutal, loyal, but fractured, emotionally volatile, spiritually divided. Lucas once described it as a war of identities, and the actor Hayden Christensen echoed that idea. He said that Vader's psyche was a constant battle of percentages. Sometimes he's 95% Vader, sometimes it's only 50%. But the Anakin is always there, always watching. That internal fracture is why Vader never became what he could have been, even with his diminished midichlorian count, even with his physical limits. Sidious believed that Vader still had the potential to grow stronger, maybe even strong enough to challenge him, because the dark side thrives not just on hate, but on clarity, on commitment. Vader never truly had that clarity. His hatred was polluted by memory. His drive was tangled in grief. And though he tried to suppress it, through violence, domination, and through cruelty, the past kept reaching for him. His obsession with resurrection is the clearest example. Vader didn't pursue knowledge to dominate or to reshape. He pursued it to undo his own story. He built machines to bring Padme back. He chased secrets to rewrite his pain. His greatest ambitions weren't born from conquest. They were born from his loss. In that sense, Vader's transformation was incomplete. His cybernetics weren't symbols of rebirth, they were old scars. He never became a new being. Vader simply survived. And that is what made him vulnerable. That is what made him lesser in the eyes of the Sith. Because there was another. Someone who did walk through that fire. Who did suffer mutilation. Who did lose a part of herself. And who had emerged stronger. Proof. A Sith Lord who didn't cling to the past, she didn't fight for what was lost, she bled for the rule of two, and she came back more powerful. Darth Jean. But what makes her so different? Before Darth Plagueis, before Sidious, and before Vader, there was a Sith Lord named Jean. You won't find many statues of her. No operas were written in her honor. No temples built in her name. But the story is one of the most brutal and most important tests of loyalty in the history of the Rule of Two. Darth Jean's master was Darth Gravid, a heretic who lost his mind. Gravid believed the only way forward was to fuse Jedi teachings with Sith doctrine, merging peace with passion, compassion with conquest. It was a philosophy born of madness, and it nearly tore the Sith apart. Gravid did not fall. He turned on the very legacy he was meant to preserve. He began destroying ancient Sith knowledge, scrolls, holocrons, secrets dating back to Bane, and farther, to Ragnos, Vitiate, the Ancients. All of it wiped away in a fanatic effort to purify the Sith. And when Darth Jean discovered what her master had done, she had no choice. She had to stop him. The duel between Gravid and Jean was one of the most violent in Sith history, one of my favorite. It wasn't just a battle between an apprentice and a master. It was a war for the soul of the Sith. Gravid mutilated her in that duel. Jean lost one of her arms, most of her shoulder, and her eye. She was left shattered, not unlike Vader, but her story did not end. It began here. Darth Jean did not just survive, she endured. She underwent cybernetic reconstruction and returned to the Rule of Two not as a broken survivor, but as an embodiment of its truth. She had fought, she had bled, she had killed for the Sith legacy, and that act, that willingness to suffer, to rebuild, and to recommit, it impressed even Plagueis, who would later reflect on her condition with admiration. Her cybernetics did not weaken her. Let that sink in, guys. She didn't lose power, she gained power. Not because the technology made her stronger, but because her conviction did. Jean's cybernetics were not a prison, they were not a punishment, they were a symbol of her sacrifice. Proof that she had endured the flames of betrayal and emerged more loyal and powerful than ever. Her body was no longer whole, but for the first time ever, her purpose was. And that's what separates Jean from Vader. Both were mutilated, both scarred, both had pieces of themselves ripped away by the very people they trusted. But only one of them turned that trauma into a full transformation. Only one used pain to solidify her new identity. Jean did not cling to what was lost, she didn't build machines to bring back the past, she let it burn, and in doing so she became new. She didn't just survive the Rule of Two, she had saved it. And in that moment she became something Vader never quite would. A Sith forged in that pain, but not defined by it. The truth is, power in the dark side has never come from flesh or metal. It was never about youth, strength, physical perfection. Even Sidious knew all of this. Sidious, the most powerful Sith Lord in galactic history, was a withered old man by the time of even the Clone Wars. In private, he was shocked at how hard it was just to move without calling upon the Force. And yet his influence stretched across stars. Because in the dark side, the body is secondary. The mind, the will is everything. This is what made Sidious and Jean dangerous, and what kept Vader from ever becoming the full potential of what he still had. His body was broken, yes, but his mind, that was fractured far worse. Only one of them, between Jean and Vader, became stronger by their mutilation. Because it is not the pure pain that makes the Sith more powerful. It's the commitment, the clarity, it's the transformation. And Darth Vader always remained 95% transformed. When Jean was partially butchered, she didn't mourn what was taken. She didn't fall into grief or obsession, she embraced what the pain meant. Jean did not see her injuries as defeat, they were the crucible, the test of loyalty. They were the reminder that she had fought to preserve the Rule of Two with her body, her blade, and with her blood. Darth Jean was held together by purpose. But compare that all to Vader. His injuries were greater, his body was mangled nearly beyond repair. But it wasn't just the pain that limited him. It was the pain and what it reminded him of. What all of the pain had meant. To Jean, the pain had represented triumph. To Vader, it represented failure. They represented the identity of Anakin. The memories, the guilt, and the longing. His ambition was poisoned by sentiment. His darkness clouded by the very love that he had once tried to protect. The voice of Anakin was always somewhere. But this is not a condemnation of Vader, it's the tragedy. Because even Palpatine, the man who forged him into a monster, believed that if Vader could truly let go, he may have become a legitimate rival and threat. Even after losing half of his potential, even after being caged in a body of black iron and pain, Palpatine always viewed him as the near-perfect monster. Emphasis on the near. I know many will point to Belia Darzu, or perhaps Darth Malgus as other examples of Sith conquering, growing more powerful from their cybernetics. Malgus's transformation was never about rebirth though, it was about endurance, rage, not reinvention. Then you have Belia Darzu, the techno-beast mistress. She fused Sith alchemy with technology, created living machines, and transformed her own body. But this Sith's modifications were self-inflicted, voluntary and experimental. She fell into madness. Her path was one of obsession, not clarity. Then you have Sion. Every step was suffering. Every moment tore him apart. And yet he chose to stay alive not because of loyalty or purpose, but because he refused to let go. He was a testament to the power of pain. but he was still trapped by it. Darth Jean is different. She didn't survive, she didn't endure, she let go. She accepted the loss, submitted herself to the dark side's crucible, and emerged truly reborn. This is why Plagueis admired her so. That's why her example matters. Because Vader couldn't. She let the past die, and in doing that, she became the Sith that she was always meant to be. Vader's body may have been shattered, but it was his mind and his soul that was truly broken. He was a Sith born in failure, held together by grief, and haunted by the echo of a name that he tried to forget. Anakin. But he did not become something completely new as the dark side and as the Sith demands. This is something that Vader's own master knew, that even in his ruined state, he still had the potential to rise higher, to become something that even the Emperor should fear to control. If he had fully killed Anakin, he would have become the perfect monster. But he never did. And in the end, it was failure that saved him, because that part of him that he could never let go, that was the part that allowed him to be saved, to turn his back, to destroy the Emperor, and to save his son. But the story of Darth Jean is not over, because her transformation was only possible through one of the most grueling duels in all of Star Wars history, a battle against her own master, a fallen heretic named Gravid, whose madness nearly destroyed all of the Rule of Two. But that story, and the War of the Sith's soul, is coming soon. But as always, my friends, what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on Darth Vader's weaknesses, his limitations self-imposed, and Darth Jean? What do you think Vader would have looked like if he had completely killed Anakin? Would he be more powerful than Sidious? As always, my friends and fellow lore junkies, reach out with the Force and crush that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I hope you're having a phenomenal day. Darth Vader hated the Jedi Temple. He hated everything that it represented. He hated the order that raised him, judged him, and that ultimately betrayed him. During Operation Nightfall, he attempted to burn the temple to the ground, to erase every stone and every memory tied to the legacy of the Jedi. But his hatred for the temple goes far deeper than his hatred for any Jedi. It was a wound that follows him into the rise of the Empire, and a wound that grows into something much darker, something that he never expected. Because the temple did not die the night that it fell. It changed, and when Vader returned to it as the Emperor's apprentice, he discovered that the place he once walked as a child had become something far more sinister. The halls he had once walked as Anakin Skywalker, the halls filled with the quiet judgment, the whispers of the Jedi Masters watching him, they now felt inverted. They no longer judged him. They mocked him. They did not fear the monster he had become. They did not recoil from his anger or the power of the dark side that now radiated from him. Instead, the walls seemed confident, almost bold, as if they understood a truth about Vader that no one else had recognized. The temple had become a new domain, one where Vader did not have authority, one where his presence meant nothing or little. Vader could feel it. A pressure, a tightening in the Force, a sense that the building itself resented him. Every instinct he had screamed that he did not belong there, that he was being watched, not by the Jedi this time, but by something new. Vader had burned this place to the ground. He had stained its floors in blood. He had slaughtered every Jedi inside that he could find. Yet somehow, the temple felt more alive now than it had when the Order ruled it. It had been reshaped into something else, something that did not recognize him as master, something that did not respect him even as a Sith Lord. And that realization, that quiet rejection, cut deeper than any memory of the Jedi. This reveals a truth that he does not want to confront. Darth Vader realizes that this place belongs to someone else. Not Vader, not the Jedi, not even the Sith. It belongs to the Emperor. Greetings, Acolytes and Lore Junkies, and today we will break down exactly why Darth Vader hated the Imperial Palace, as well as explain why Palpatine was exceptionally strong there, and why Vader was exceptionally weakened. Unlike the halls of the Imperial Palace, the archives here are always open. No shrines bend the Force, no secret pressure pushing you down, just shelves upon shelves of forgotten legends, strange lore, and the deepest Star Wars knowledge that we can uncover. If you want to keep exploring the mysteries of a galaxy far, far away with us, then step inside and hit that subscribe button. The next secret is waiting. Today's lore comes from the Dark Empire sourcebook. As Vader moves deeper into the halls of the temple, something becomes unmistakable. The building is not different because of the Imperial banners or new architecture. The very air feels changed. The Force has changed here. The temple Vader once knew is gone. The structure feels ancient yet newborn, as if its identity has been rewritten in his absence. Vader pauses in one of the central corridors. He remembers standing here as a boy, gripping his training lightsaber, attempting to quiet the storm inside his mind, the Jedi behind him whispering to one another. He remembers fearing their judgment, their disappointment, and sensing their doubt. Those voices had followed him for years. They had shaped his anger long before the dark side ever touched him fully. But now, as he stands in the same place, he hears nothing of the Jedi at all. Instead, the silence presses into him, heavy, unyielding, not empty or peaceful, a silence that watches him. This unsettles Vader. This place does not fear him. It doesn't recognize him as conqueror. It feels almost amused that he has returned, as if it knows something that he does not, as if it is waiting for him to understand. Vader extends his senses outward, attempting to grasp what has changed. As Anakin Skywalker, he would never have noticed anything amiss beyond the natural tension of a spiritual sanctuary. But as a Sith Lord, with the dark side sharpened within him, he sees patterns etched beneath the surface. He can sense subtle currents of power that move through the walls, through the floors, through the foundation of the structure. Power that is old and chaotic, wild. Power that is now organized, directed, and claimed. Vader sees what no Jedi could. He sees the faint geometric patterns carved into the stone. He recognizes shapes and angles that have no place in Jedi architecture. He senses runes embedded beneath layers of reconstructed walls, placed with surgical and meticulous precision. They hum faintly with energy, dormant eyes that open only for a single master. Vader's unease begins to transform into something colder. It is not a building reclaimed by the Empire. It's not even a monument to victory. It's something else. Something not built to honor, but to empower Palpatine. Vader realizes that whatever the temple has become, it was not created to elevate the Sith. It has been made to elevate Sidious alone. He doesn't understand how. He doesn't see the whole picture, but he can feel the truth approaching him like a shadow stretching across the threshold. The temple has not changed hands. It's been reforged, reshaped, and the deeper he walks into it, the more he understands that he has stepped into a place where his power and his identity mean very little. In this place, Vader is not a Sith Lord. He is not the executioner of the Jedi. He is not the chosen one of prophecy. Here, Vader is the apprentice, and the temple knows it. To understand what the temple has become, Vader must confront what it always was. Before the Republic ruled Coruscant, before the Jedi understood the nature of the Force, there was a shrine buried deep beneath the planet's surface. This was a place of ancient evil, built when the Sith ruled the planet. When the Jedi first discovered it, they understood immediately that they could not destroy it, only bury it. So it was upon this site where they built their temple. They raised their spires and libraries, their meditation chambers over the ancient wound in the Force. And for centuries, the Jedi told themselves that the light would smooth the darkness. They told themselves that their presence, their rituals, their belief in the Force would purify the land. They believed that if they ignored the shrine long enough, that it would fall silent forever. But the shrine never fell silent. The Jedi only stopped listening. During the Clone Wars, Sidious began exploring the shrine in secret. While serving as the Chancellor above, he walked the halls of the Senate by day and descended into the darkness as a Sith Master by night. He discovered that the shrine beneath was still alive. The light of the Jedi had not cleansed it. The centuries hadn't even weakened it. If anything, the years of suppression had allowed the shrine to steep with untapped fury. He spent years unlocking it. He learned how to draw the power outward without alerting the Council. He learned to mask his presence in the Force by feeding on the Nexus's dormant strength. And slowly, ritual by ritual, Sidious began shaping the shrine into something that would serve him. It wasn't enough to harness it. He needed to tame it, and better, to own it. And slowly, Anakin Skywalker became the shrine's favored prey. It knew him. The ritual Sidious performed during the Clone Wars did not simply hide him from the Jedi. They softened Anakin. They fractured his spirit. They stirred the darkness already growing inside of him. The shrine amplified his fears. It magnified his attachments. It fanned every ember of rage that Sidious carefully provoked. The shrine did not convert Anakin, but it eroded boundaries that once protected him. The Jedi sensed a growing disturbance, but they never suspected the source was beneath their very feet. They believed that the war, the Sith, the chaos of the galaxy was responsible. They never discovered that their own temple had become the beating heart of darkness that they were attempting to seal. When nightfall arrived and the temple fell, the shrine was unbound. The order that had buried it was gone. The rituals that muted it were torn apart as the Jedi themselves were. And Sidious, now the Emperor, no longer required to hide his work. The true power of the shrine was free for the first time in thousands of years. And so the Emperor rebuilt the temple into a palace. He opened sections of the structure that the Jedi had walled off. He allowed the shrine's energy to flow upward. And most importantly, he tuned it. He carved the walls with new runes. He aligned the floors with precise Sith geometries. He shaped the corridors to guide power towards a single point, a single throne, a single master. The Jedi had tried to bury it, Sidious unearthed it, and Vader had freed it. This was a building raised from Jedi stone, but filled with Sith sovereignty, a structure born from centuries of repression. The shrine was no longer a secret. It is the heart of Imperial rule, and Vader feels its pulse cleanly now. When Vader finally reaches the upper levels of the palace, he finds his master waiting. Sidious stands before the panoramic windows, his hands folded peacefully, gazing down at the endless lights of Coruscant. He turns as Vader approaches and offers a smile that most would seem as warm. He calls Vader friend. He speaks gently, softly, greeting an old trusted companion. But Vader knows the truth. The kindness is a mask. Every word he speaks is wrapped in layers of intent. Each sentence is a test. Their conversations are always polite, but beneath the calm tone lies a struggle of will, an exchange of pressure and resistance, a push and pull within the Force that neither of them would ever acknowledge aloud. This is what it meant to be Sith. In any other place in the galaxy, Vader can push back. He can assert his presence. He can let the power within him swell as a storm, but not here. Not in the palace. Not in the heart of the shrine that Sidious has claimed. Here he feels the difference immediately. His connection is dimmed, not severed or broken, but dulled. The precision that normally he commands is muted. The dark side does not rise to meet him the way that it should. It moves sluggishly. Here, of all places, he is utterly outmatched. And Sidious feels it too. He does not show it, but he feels it. He speaks in gentle tones because he knows he does not need to raise his voice. In this place, he is untouchable. The shrine sings to him alone. The power flows through the walls as if veins into his heartbeat. When he reaches out, the Force answers instantly, eagerly, as though it has been waiting for him. And Vader senses it as well. He senses that here his master is stronger than anywhere else in the galaxy. The shrine gives him such clarity that the slightest ripple of his presence feels overwhelming. For Vader, the effect is unmistakable. If he attempts to challenge Sidious here, if he even allows his thoughts to drift towards rebellion, the Force will betray him. This is why Sidious built his throne here, not for symbolism alone, or for history, but because the palace is the perfect shield against other Force wielders. Not Vader alone. Sidious's protection is woven into the stone and the air. The shrine makes him invincible without a single physical barrier. If it can dull Vader, the most powerful darkside warrior of the entire era, then the effect on lesser Force sensitives is unimaginable. Any survivor, any Inquisitor, any acolyte who stepped into this place would feel their power collapse with a whisper. They are spiritually disarmed before they ever lift a hand. Sidious knows it. Vader knows it. But they never speak it. They never acknowledge the invisible war. But each time Vader enters the palace, each time Sidious greets him with a smile, they both understand. This is a place where the master cannot be overthrown. Here is a place the apprentice cannot rise. This is a place where the rule of two is absolute and unbreakable. And Vader despises it here. Here the Dark Lord is forced to confront something. He has now traded one set of chains for another. The Jedi held him back with rules and expectations. The Sith held him back now with power and inevitability. The Jedi caged his potential, and Sidious has caged his future. And the most devastating part of it all is that these chains are all that Vader has left. The Imperial Palace actually sees Vader in his true position, with perfect clarity, not as a partner, not as an heir, not as a second Sith Lord rising towards supremacy. Palpatine has made sure that when he enters the Imperial Palace, he knows his place always. There is no place in the galaxy where Darth Vader is more of an apprentice than here. And the chains that bind him are not forged from metal or fire. They are built into the stone beneath his feet. They are built into the Force that moves through the air. Sidious has created a prison without walls, and Vader realizes that he walks willingly inside. This all comes from the Dark Empire sourcebook. It's here where we find the description of the Imperial Palace's dark signature, the suppression of other Force sensitives within the walls, and the amplification of the Emperor's power through the ancient shrine. It confirms Palpatine mastered the nexus that the Jedi once attempted to bury. It has become a fortress that serves him and him only. This is a tragic detail in the lore that I think many have overlooked. It adds a profound depth to the tragedy of Vader. This place, where he trained as a child, where he once dreamed of becoming a Jedi Knight, it has become a place where he feels his greatest defeat as a Sith. It's not a defeat of combat, but it's a defeat of his identity. A reminder that even at the height of his power, that the shadow of Sidious will always tower over him, and that it always has. It is a symbol of Vader's truth. He did not overthrow the Jedi to claim a future. He helped to create a throne that only his master can sit upon, and the change he forged for himself in that moment echo throughout the rest of his life and its halls. But as always, my friends, thank you so much for exploring this forgotten corner of Star Wars legends. May the Force be with you in all of its mysteries, and may it continue to reveal the stories hidden deep beneath shadow. Have a great day.
straight to Jet Trooper.
By now it is more commonly known that the encounter with Dooku on Geonosis left Yoda with some great concerns. He had not anticipated that his former Padawan had truly turned towards the dark side, nor did the Grandmaster know that his power had reached the level that it had. However, the lingering implications of Dooku's powers and actions that day left Yoda with a much deeper and a much more profound fear. The fear of Dooku's master, Darth Sidious, and a terrible realization about the Sith and their grand scheme. Hello again, lore junkies, and welcome back to the archives. Once again, it is the novels of Legends continuity that yield more secrets about the thoughts of major galactic players. And in the book Labyrinth of Evil, we get a peek into Yoda's psyche as he contemplates Dooku and his role as a Sith Lord, the state of the Jedi in conjunction with the New Republic, and more. This passage may be crucial in understanding Yoda's choices during the latter days of the war, and the events of Revenge of the Sith. So my friends, the archives are open. Let us begin. On Geonosis, the power of Darth Tyrannus struck fear into every Jedi that heard of it, and especially fear into Yoda. Yoda outclassed his former apprentice on the basis of experience and knowledge alone, but that did not mean that Yoda was not surprised by the depths of power that Dooku had achieved in such a short period of time. In the battle of force ability, the two had stalemated, and in a contest of the lightsaber, Yoda was forced to concede how well Dooku was doing against him. 70 standard years of Jedi training had been turned now towards evil and darkness. All of Dooku's background as a Jedi caused his fall to hit even harder for the Grand Master. Not only was he one of the finest lightsaber duelists of the era, but he was famous for having exceptional natural talent in the Force as well. Talent which he supplemented with extensive study and rigorous training. Dooku did not coast on his natural potential, he sought to fulfill it, and when Darth Sidious sunk his claws deep into the former Jedi, all of that discipline and talent was warped to serve the Sith and to serve the dark side. One of the things we've extensively discussed before was why Dooku's power made the Jedi doubt the existence of Sidious at all. The fact that Darth Tyrannus had stalemated Grandmaster Yoda had shaken the Council to their very core. A Jedi of his caliber turning dark was bad enough, but to suggest that he had a master to train him implied that there was a Sith out there who had an even greater power and command over the Force. To make things worse, this opened the possibility of there being a Darksider stronger than Yoda. The Jedi deemed this an impossibility, because to them, they believed they would have otherwise sensed such a powerful being. And so they coped by theorizing that Dooku had taught himself through Sith holocrons, and had lied about the existence of a master and Sidious in order to throw the Jedi off of his trail. But in 19 BBY, irrefutable evidence of Sidious existence surfaced, throwing the Jedi into a deep panic. This is where Yoda sat down to meditate on its implications. Yoda mentally revisited the duel on Geonosis with a fresh perspective, and Yoda was stricken with deep misgivings as what he saw, and the implications of Dooku serving a real, tangible Sith order. The thoughts Yoda has in Labyrinth of Evil occurred during his meditations right before the Battle of Coruscant breaks out. Once again, he is attempting to look into the future, but the Grandmaster is frustrated by the dark side blocking his sight. This is what Labyrinth of Evil reads. Though he was scarcely aware of it, his eyelids were squeezed tight, his eyeballs dancing beneath as if incapable of focusing on any one thing. He had an image of himself drawing aside a veil only to find another, and another beyond that. The dark side frustrated his every effort to see clearly. Experience was still something new to him. Even though he'd had centuries to grow accustomed to foreboding, he had lived far longer without it. The dark side never completely disappeared. It scratched at the surface like an insect crawling across a transparent steel panel, and he had been able to sense its incremental increases in strength when the Jedi erred, or when the Republic erred. And soon, the two were hand in hand. Drawn into the mistakes of the Republic, the Jedi had been, but knowingly, and sometimes with full complicity. Allowed the dark side to take root the Jedi had, allowed arrogance to infect the order the Jedi had, a priority holding on to power had become, inflated by their own conquests, the Jedi became. Some Jedi believed that Yoda was not aware of these things, or that he hadn't done enough to stem the tide of the dark side. Some believed that the Council had acted improperly, or worse, ineptly. What they failed to understand was that once rooted, the growth of the dark side was inexorable, and could only be reversed by the one born to restore balance. Yoda was not that one. Aged, experienced, diplomatic, informative, brilliant with a lightsaber, yes, all of these things. And not unacquainted with the power of the dark side either. For that reason, he understood just how dangerous this new Sith Lord was. He hadn't had a sense of the danger until he fought Dooku on Geonosis. Then Yoda understood. In self-exile for 1,000 years, the Sith had not merely been waiting for an appropriate time to re-emerge and exact revenge, but for the birth of one strong enough to embrace the dark side fully and become its dedicated instrument. This was Sidious, powerful enough to hide in plain sight, powerful enough to instruct his apprentice Dooku to expose him, and still remain hidden from the Jedi, and as arrogant as the Jedi, convinced that his way was the only way. Did he know about Skywalker? Surely he did. What better way to ensure total victory than by killing or corrupting the Chosen One? Even if not that one, someone so strong in midichlorians, someone birthed by the Force itself. Qui-Gon would have said, never a doubt about Anakin's mother that she may have been lying. The boy had no father, none that she had chose to remember, none she would honor with that title. The Sith were aware of Skywalker. How would he react when they tried to finally ensnare him? So there's a lot to unpack here, and it's all very important. Firstly, I love that we get a visual on what the dark side veil looks like in the Force. Earlier in the chapter it mentions how they were whirlpools or currents in the Force that suck the Seeker's concentration. It also describes how the waters were muddied and corrupted. But when Yoda is able to push through all of it, he's met with the visual of an endless corridor of curtains. Every time he would pull one back, he's met with another, and so on and so forth, without ever fully piercing through it. We talk a lot about the veil of the dark side, which disrupts the Jedi's ability to gain insight about the war or to see the future. Descriptions are often vague, but now we finally understand what it's like from their perspective. Yoda describes how he came to understand how dangerous Sidious was only after dueling Dooku on Geonosis. During this 1,000-year time of peace, the Jedi still dealt with cults and Dark Jedi who had grand plans, but never actually executed them. Most of their plans are limited to single worlds or star systems, but the Sith are different. The ancestral enemies of the Jedi had returned after being thought extinct. Yoda figures out that they are far more organized than he ever thought. They weren't just a few cultists with wild ideas playing off of the namesake of the Sith. They were the real deal, and they were playing on the galactic stage. Most disillusioned Jedi acted like rebellious teenage children angry at their parents, and that's probably what Yoda thought of Dooku at first. But that image was shattered. It was replaced by an understanding of something far more sinister. Being a Dark Jedi and calling oneself a Sith for effect was one thing, but actually embracing their teachings under a real master was another entirely. And since a Sith master did exist, and was hiding in the Senate like Dooku had claimed, the state of the Republic and the Jedi suddenly became very worrisome to Yoda. Yoda admits that historically, the dark side tended to grow whenever the Jedi erred in their ways, or when the Republic erred. In the past, one was able to help the other. Should the Republic weaken or become unstable, the Jedi would bring them back to the center. This happens countless times in galactic history, especially in the Pius Dea era when the Republic became straight up evil and corrupted. In that era, the Jedi were able to take control back and put the Republic back on course successfully. And if the Jedi were to become slack in their ways, the Republic would serve as an anchor point for their ideals. A good example of this is during the end of the New Sith Wars. The Army of Light had fought the Brotherhood of Darkness so fiercely that the line between good and evil was blurred. The Jedi were employing child soldiers and shipping off Padawans to die on the front lines of a war. It required the wisdom of Grandmaster Fate Kovan to mend the Jedi's relationship with the Republic that no longer wanted the war, and they disbanded their Army of Light to better serve as peacekeepers and guardians to a wounded and damaged Republic. But now a new, worse problem had presented itself. During this period of becoming peacekeepers, their zeal for peace caused them to attain a great quantity of power. Yoda acknowledged that the Jedi's conquest during a time of peace had made them far too focused on control and prestige. In the desire to maintain the stability they worked so hard to achieve, they became obsessed with power. And now that they had it, the acquisition of control had made them proud and arrogant. And now the Jedi had become intrinsically intertwined with the Republic, so much so that they were bound together even in the Force. Now that when one of them erred, the other did as well. This caused the dark side's growth to rapidly accelerate. Just as moisture and darkness creates an environment for mold and rot, so too does this corruptive ecosystem allow the Sith to thrive right under the Republic's nose. And just as mold infects the perceptions of those that inhale it, so too have the Sith manipulated the Jedi into a deep blindness. Yoda is finally able to perceive all of this, but feels powerless to stop it. Yes, he's the Grand Master, but he cannot force each and every Jedi to change their perspective and their behavior. The Jedi had been operating like this for decades, perhaps centuries. Yoda could bring it up in a council meeting and share his concern, but would it really extract the influence of the dark side out of his fellow Jedi Masters? Out of the very Order itself? No. That job was the job of the Chosen One, who is stated by prophecy to reverse this damage. Yoda's only issue is that he doubts whether the Chosen One was actually Anakin. All signs pointed to Skywalker, but as we spoke about in a previous video, Yoda is in a state of maybe he is, maybe he isn't. This is what he's saying when he mentioned Shmi's story about Anakin having no father. Qui-Gon firmly believed that Skywalker was conceived by the Force, but Yoda wondered if Shmi's "there is no father" meant that there was indeed a father, but one she was ashamed of and wanted to forget. But whether or not Skywalker was the Chosen One, the fact remained that he is still an incredibly talented and a powerful Jedi. The Sith always pursued the ones that showed the most promise, and right now, Yoda could plainly see that the Jedi that they wanted was Skywalker. It's unfortunate that he couldn't literally see Sidious's plan unfolding, but got blindsided when it actually occurred. Since Yoda did not know about Padme, he didn't understand the depths of Anakin's attachment and his true vulnerability. So when the young Chosen One came to him for advice about his dreams, Yoda gave him the wisdom that would have helped out a more disciplined Jedi. This is why Yoda had begun to retroactively fear the Sith more after his duel with Dooku. He began to see just how messy the Jedi Order had become, and by strike contrast, how organized and efficiently the Sith were operating. And Yoda realized that they had been doing it for hundreds of years. The Sith that Dooku had become, and worse, the Sith that mastered him, were not some cheap knockoffs. They were the real deal. And all of this stemmed from understanding the power of Dooku and how it framed the power and influence of Sidious. It wasn't necessarily about their talent in the Force, but in the deep plots that they were involved in. But here's the massive question. What do you think on Yoda's analysis and conclusions? It seems pretty wild that Yoda was able to see much of Sidious's plan, yet was still blindsided when it actually came to fruition. The biggest thing I absolutely love about this moment is just how powerful Dooku truly is. Yoda knew his former apprentice was gifted, disciplined, and formidable, but he didn't expect him to be this strong. In Yoda's heart, there was a quieter assumption that Dooku had pieced together his power through stolen holocrons, fragments of forbidden knowledge, or half-understood teachings scavenged from the past. That would have been frightening enough, but manageable. What shattered the illusion was the realization that Dooku did not stand alone. He matched Yoda in both lightsaber combat and raw force ability, and yet he was still only an apprentice. The idea that someone capable of rivaling the Grand Master had been trained by a master greater still was deeply unsettling. But the true horror and the true reveal of the passage goes even further. This was not a new dark side movement. It was not a fractured cult. It was not a Sith rebirth starting from desperation and improvisation like so many before. This was the Sith of old, but new, evolved, a structured lineage, a patient, disciplined order that had survived, prepared, and returned exactly when the galaxy was the most vulnerable. When Yoda and the Jedi were the most vulnerable. Perhaps Yoda was believing and hoping that if he had more time, that if Anakin were the Chosen One, that he would step in sooner and would fulfill his destiny. But maybe this was the passive take that allowed the Jedi to fall. But what do you think, my friend? Should Yoda have shared his concerns with the Jedi Council no matter what their reaction may have been? Should Yoda have pulled back the veil and revealed not only how powerful the Sith were, but how weak the Jedi had become because they were intertwined with the Republic? Please let us know your thoughts on this fascinating deeper lore in the comments down below. As always, my friends, thank you so much for joining us here today in the archives, and may the Force guide you wherever your path takes you next. Catch you soon. Count Dooku did not fall to the dark side because he craved chaos. He fell because he believed the Jedi Order had failed, and that something stronger needed to replace it. In Dooku's mind, the Sith were never meant to exist as parasites in the shadows, devouring one another under the rule of two. A system built on secrecy, fear, and eventual disposal. Dooku imagined something else entirely, a structure, a hierarchy, a disciplined order that mirrored the Jedi in form, but surpassed them in purpose and power. Where the Jedi Council had grown passive and indecisive, Dooku envisioned a Sith order that acted. Where the Jedi suppressed power, Dooku believed the Sith should cultivate it, not through endless betrayal, but through control, doctrine, and a strict hierarchy. In this future, Dooku did not see himself as an apprentice any longer. He believed the galaxy would be ruled by two pillars, Sidious as the Emperor, the political absolute, and Dooku as something unprecedented, a Sith Grand Master. The Keeper of Doctrine, the architect of a new Force tradition, a dark mirror of the Jedi Council, rebuilt under Sith principles. Even Anakin Skywalker had a place in this vision, not as Sidious's blunt instrument, but as a knight of a brand new order, a dark champion who would serve beneath Dooku's authority, enforcing Sith will just as Jedi Knights once enforced the Republic's peace. This belief is critical, because it explains why Count Dooku never behaved like a disposable apprentice would. Even as the Clone Wars wreathed worlds in flame, Dooku never stopped thinking like a Sith. While fleets clashed and armies burned worlds in his name, Dooku was quietly pursuing something far more dangerous than any military victory. Dooku was looking for a way out, a way to overthrow his master, a way to break the rule of two. And he pursued that future through 3 holocrons. Each holocron represented a phase of his long game: recruitment, knowledge, immortality. Together they formed a roadmap not just to usurp Palpatine, but to secure Dooku's place as the eventual ruler of the galaxy. This was Dooku's plan, and these were the 3 artifacts that he believed would make it a reality. But before the holocrons enlighten us, if you would like to dress like a dignified count rather than a raging brute, there's Sith-inspired merch available right now on the Star Wars merch page. Dark, refined designs worthy of a Dark Lord. Order before Christmas and use code WAVE for 15% off on top of 35% off site-wide. So basically half off. Link is in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for your support, and now, let us open today's holocron. Phase 1, the Nova Holocron. The first phase of Dooku's long game was not about overthrowing his master, it was about building leverage. The Sith Nova Holocron was not a repository of ancient wisdom or forgotten knowledge. It was a mechanism, a purpose-built instrument designed for a single, unsettling function: detection. Unlike Jedi methods that relied on trust, tradition, and voluntary surrender, the Nova Holocron was engineered to locate Force sensitives automatically. Not merely those who already existed in the galaxy, but those who had only just been born. If a Force sensitive entered the galaxy, the Nova would know. For Dooku, this was not an abstract tool. This was the beginning of infrastructure. The Nova offered something Sidious deliberately denied his apprentices, and that is autonomy. The ability to find, shape, and control Force wielders independently of the rule of two. This allowed Dooku to think in terms of networks rather than in a line of succession. This explains why during the Clone Wars, Dooku surrounded himself with more darkside agents than any Sith apprentice in generations. Assassins, enforcers, and fallen Jedi. None of them were intended to replace him. They were proof of concept. The Nova Holocron was the scalable version of that new concept. It represented the earliest stage of a plan that did not rely on killing Sidious, at least not immediately. It relied on making himself irreplaceable first. If Dooku could control the discovery of Force wielders, he would control the future balance of power, regardless of who sat on the throne. And this phase was never about speed. The Clone Wars were designed to be short. Dooku knew this. The Nova Holocron was about what came after the war ended, when titles would solidify and roles would harden. It was the bet on the long term. Legends never confirms the ultimate fate of the Holocron. It vanishes from the record without explanation. But that absence matters, because it suggests a plan that was interrupted, not one that was discarded. The Nova Holocron marks the first moment when Dooku stopped behaving like an apprentice waiting for permission from a master. It marks when he began acting like someone preparing to outgrow Sidious. This was Phase 1. But now we reach Phase 2, the Dark Holocron. If the Nova Holocron represents leverage, the second phase was about something more dangerous: power. The Dark Holocron was not a single Sith Lord's teachings preserved for an heir. It was an archive, one of the earliest holocrons ever created in the lore, dating all the way back to the era of the 12 Dark Jedi. Some Jedi architects even hypothesized that it is before the era of the 12, something far older than maybe even the Sith tradition as a whole, or at least that's where the holocron's beginnings stem. Dooku desired it because it held information long before the Rule of Two reshaped the Sith into a narrow, secretive lineage, a lineage that Dooku found himself a part of, but desired to dismantle. The Dark Holocron does not speak with a single voice. It contained the accumulated knowledge of multiple Sith across multiple eras, across histories, across rituals, philosophies, and even contradictions. It was a record of the Sith before they learned to starve their own apprentices of information and of power. To Dooku, this was invaluable. Sidious's greatest advantage was not raw strength, it was his depth. A lifetime spent digging deeper than anyone else, layer upon layer of knowledge, contingency, and preparation. Dooku understood this, and he understood something greater. He was not ready yet. The Dark Holocron was a rare moment of honesty in Dooku's ambition. He didn't believe himself equal to Sidious. He believed his master had gone further, learned more, and seen truths that he had not. And rather than rush into rebellion, Dooku sought to close that gap. This was not desperation, it was discipline and preparation. The Holocron offered access to knowledge that existed outside of the Rule of Two entirely, teachings that predated Bane, rituals that were never meant to be shared between master and apprentice, ideas dangerous enough that the Jedi chose to lock them away rather than destroy them. To Dooku, this holocron was a vault of strategic weapons, not lightsabers or fleets, but of concepts, forgotten methods of power, alternate paths the Sith once walked before they confined themselves to a single, brittle system that Dooku wished to shatter. It is likely that this archive did more than simply empower Dooku. It gave him a map for a future. It gifted Dooku an understanding of Sith history broad enough to identify patterns, to trace where certain obsessions had led, to recognize and learn from names that had vanished from common Sith memory. And through that deeper understanding, Dooku accomplished something no Sith had done in centuries. The map was successful, and it led Dooku to an ancient evil that had been lost. Dooku found Darth Endedu. This discovery alone suggests that the Dark Holocron was doing exactly what Dooku had desired. It was not making him reckless, it was making him dangerous in a quieter way, calculated, patient. A Sith who was no longer confined to the knowledge that his master allowed him to have. But this phase also reveals something worse. The more Dooku learned, the more certain he became that knowledge alone would save him. Sidious had survived for so long. He was the culmination of Bane's Rule of Two. Even ancient powers would fail against him. Even Dooku's overwhelming insight could be countered. This meant the final phase could not be about victory. To Dooku, the final phase needed to be about survival. Phase 3, the Holocron of Darth Endedu. The final phase of Dooku's plan was not about power, it was a deeper refusal. By the time Dooku turned his attention to Endedu's holocron, he had already accepted a brutal truth about the Sith. No matter how brilliant the apprentice, no matter how prepared the challenge, the Rule of Two was designed to end in a similar way, with one of them dead. And Dooku knew that if it came down to Sidious and himself, that his master would crush him. So Dooku searched for something the Rule of Two could not account for. Death itself. Darth Endedu was one of the earliest Sith obsessed with defying mortality. His teachings focused on essence transfer, spiritual persistence, and the ability to survive the destruction of one's physical body. Not resurrection in a Jedi sense, not harmony, but the Sith refusal to be erased, a continuation. Endedu's holocron was not merely forbidden, it was dangerous even by Sith standards, knowledge so destabilizing that it threatened the entire structure of Sith succession, because a Sith who could not truly die can never be replaced. This is why Dooku's possession of Endedu's holocron matters more than any other artifact that he pursued. At this point, Dooku no longer planned to overthrow Sidious and take his place. He planned to make his own replacement impossible. If he could master Endedu's teachings, he would not need to win once. He could lose and return. He could be killed and persist. The moment a Sith apprentice achieves that, the Rule of Two collapses, and that was Dooku's goal. There are signs that this knowledge was not theoretical either. Dooku gifted Quinlan Vos a red kyber crystal believed to have once belonged to Darth Endedu himself. A crystal housed in his holocron. A deliberate choice. not merely a weapon, but a relic tied to a Sith Lord who had already walked the path that Dooku was now studying. It suggests that Endedu's teachings were not locked away, but informing Dooku's actions. But this is where the plan collapses. Legends implies that Endedu's holocron ultimately passed into Sidious's possession. Whether Dooku surrendered it under pressure, or Sidious seized it once he was dead, or became more aware of the danger, the result was the same. Dooku's safeguard was removed. The Dark Holocron was also believed to be claimed by Sidious, but the Nova Holocron vanished. And with that, Dooku's long game would collapse. Recruitment, knowledge, immortality. Each phase was sound, each step logical, and each one revealed how deeply Dooku understood the Sith. But he was still playing on a board that his master didn't merely control, but one that he had designed. Still though, Dooku's plan was brilliant. Recruitment, knowledge, and immortality. When viewed together, the holocrons reveal something far more disturbing than a failed coup. They reveal a blueprint not for a throne, but for ruling the galaxy. For permanence. Dooku was not preparing to rule for a lifetime. He was preparing to rule across many lifetimes. The Nova Holocron would have allowed him to identify and shape Force wielders from birth. Not dozens, hundreds, but perhaps thousands. An order of Sith as populous as the Jedi, but without debate, without dissent, without mercy. Structured, hierarchical, and absolute. The Dark Holocron gave him the depth to command them. Ancient doctrine, forgotten rituals, Sith history unfiltered by the rule of two. This would allow Dooku to determine what the Sith would ultimately be allowed to become. And Endedu's holocron offered a final terror. A future where Dooku did not age out of power, where death was an inconvenience, where the Grand Master of the Sith endured by transferring his essence from vessel to vessel, shedding bodies as easily as he did titles. Not a charismatic ruler, not a beloved one, but an eternal administrator of the dark side, an ancient calculating presence presiding over generations of Sith who never truly surpassed him, because Dooku would never truly leave. A figure more akin to a living institution than a man. The Sith Order no longer driven by ambition, but frozen beneath the refined, unyielding will of its founder. This is what makes the question unsettling. What if Dooku had been given more time? What if Sidious had not uncovered these holocrons when he did? What if the Clone Wars had dragged on just a little longer? The Sith might not have inherited the galaxy through a single tyrant and a disposable apprentice. They may have inherited it through something worse. A Sith Order that would never collapse, a hierarchy that would never reset, and a Dark Lord who never truly died. Dooku would rule over a more structured order of Sith. He would eliminate the chaos that had plagued them for so long. He would make them dignified, powerful. The galaxy shaped by the power of a being who believes with a dignified frown that your existence means only to serve his will. And with that, thank you so much for watching and hanging out in the archives with me. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget there's Sith-inspired merch linked down below. Refined, dark side drip. For the Sith, betrayal was the name of the game. It was natural for the apprentice to one day rise up and take on the master. Darth Bane used this as a benefit, and remade the entire Sith Order around this concept. Weaponizing betrayal made the Sith strong, as each generation increased in either power or cunning. That was until Darth Sidious and Darth Vader. Had Anakin Skywalker not suffered his loss of flesh on Mustafar, he would not have been cut down to a mere 80% of Palpatine's power, and he most certainly would have overthrown Sidious, taking his place as the Emperor of the entire galaxy. But those ambitions fell through, and within his life support armor, Vader was unable to gain the strength to rise against him. Strangely, rather than finding an alternative, another way to overthrow Sidious, Vader sort of just accepted his lot in life. But it wasn't as though he didn't try before. But as far as we can tell, there are only 3 times in all of the lore where Vader planned to actively overthrow Sidious, which is a shockingly low number considering how long he was the Emperor's apprentice and the basis of the rule of 2. So join us today as we open up another holocron and attempt to explore why Vader only ever made 3 attempts on his master's life before ultimately giving up, and why. Facing Darth Sidious head-on was never going to be an option for Vader. In the novel The Dark Lord: The Rise of Darth Vader, we get a very intimate look into Vader's life and his suit. He describes in the book in detail how limiting his new body is. The cybernetic limbs were clunky and sometimes slow to respond to his commands. His armor is described as bulky and difficult to move in, and his chest plate made it so that he could scarcely lift his arms over his head without great difficulty. For the first few months, he had to summon the Force just to be able to walk without tipping over due to his raised boots. Wires and hooks snagged on bits of loose flesh, causing him pain and itching. And this wasn't getting into the messy details of what it was like living with tubes and wires penetrating his chest, forcibly pumping oxygen directly into his lungs. Just walking around and doing mundane tasks were a chore for Darth Vader. It took Vader several weeks before he was able to readjust his fighting style to fit his new body and cybernetics. During this first little while, Anakin internally accepted that he would never be able to face the Emperor. He was hardly able to take out a few Jedi at this time. Sidious had noticed these limitations in his apprentice, but did not believe that they were truly physical. Palpatine was under the impression that Vader's issues were a result of a mental blockage, and Sidious would resolve to remove that blockage by any means necessary, even if that required putting himself in danger. So he would proceed to test, to antagonize Vader, constantly making his life even more difficult to force him into pushing through these new limits. This did work, of course, and by the midpoint of Vader's first year, he was starting to operate at peak Jedi killing capacity. But despite his newfound strength and resolve in the dark side, it was apparent that Sidious still outclassed him. He was not able to outduel his master, nor match him in the Force. The Emperor seemed to have eyes and allies everywhere. Vader felt watched day and night by spies, royal guards, and the Emperor's hands. If he challenged Sidious directly, even to get revenge for all of the lies that were told to him, it would end in disaster. Vader understood that he would have to play the long game, and be much more cunning if he were to move successfully against his master. It was late into 19 BBY when Darth Vader would be tempted to make his first big play. For a while now, he had been looking for a way to overthrow his master. At the moment, he was too afraid to attempt to put himself in new armor. The risk of the transfer process was too great, and he feared he would not survive being outside of his suit long enough for the procedure to work. And so, Vader sought an alternative method for increasing his power. Vader was drawn to an unknown desert moon. There, he followed rumors of an ancient power being discovered by pirates. When the Dark Lord arrived, he found a stasis casket that housed the dormant body of an old Republic Jedi by the name of Celeste Morn. She had been placed in stasis for over 4,000 years because she wore an ancient Sith amulet known as the Myrrh Talisman. This was a powerful artifact created by one of the founding members of the Sith Order, Carnus Myrrh. It was possessed by his undead spirit and carried the power to transform other beings into bloodthirsty monsters known as Rakghouls under the wearer's control. Celeste had sacrificed herself to wear it, and imprisoned Myrrh's spirit within her own mind so that this terror would not reign free in the galaxy. And long ago, she allowed herself to be placed in stasis until a way to destroy the amulet could be discovered. Unfortunately, no method was ever found, and she was forgotten to history until this moment. Upon awakening, she quickly discovered from a nearby Imperial scientist that the Republic that she knew had fallen, that the Jedi were gone, and that the Sith ruled the galaxy. Devastated, the Jedi turned on Vader and attacked him with great fury. The Sith defended himself while attempting to reason with Celeste, believing that if she joined him, she could be useful in his plans against Palpatine. However, Carnus Myrrh's spirit was hissing in Celeste's ear, telling her to die and allow the amulet to be passed to Vader. He saw this new Sith as a suitably strong host and wanted to be freed from Celeste's imprisonment. Vader would soon win this duel by disarming the ancient Jedi and ordered her to surrender or die. Holding her at blade point, the spirit of the ancient Dark Lord contacted Vader. He promised Vader great power, that if he took the talisman, he would have the ability to command great armies and could finally overthrow his master. Vader was granted a vision of him standing triumphant over a dead and a bleeding emperor. This was a very plausible option for the Dark Lord. Sidious always touted the power of the ancient Sith artifacts, so it only seemed fitting for Vader to begin using them against him. However, he pulled himself back from temptation when he realized that after killing Palpatine, he would only be kneeling before a brand new master, Carnus Myrrh. In effect, if he were to use the power of the amulet, he would be a slave to it, trading one master for another. At this thought, Vader eliminated the temptation to use the talisman's power and refused. Although this technically was not a blatant attempt, it is one of the only times we actually get in Legends where Vader seriously considers rising up against Sidious. Vader opted out of it, however, when he came to understand the treachery of Sith artifacts. Even to Sith themselves, using the power and knowledge of the ancients is dangerous business. The old Dark Lords were selfish and jealous creatures. They were not keen on passing their knowledge to new upstarts. So if one ever met a Sith spirit, one could expect to be manipulated and used. This is why only the most cunning of Dark Lords ever tangle with spirits, because when dealing with them, you basically had to outwit the devil himself. The artifacts they leave behind are equally as treacherous. Often these objects were created only to serve one master, and so when another attempts to usurp ownership, they can expect to pay a steep price. This was one of the first and only times Vader ever got mixed up in ancient artifacts, and this was the very reason he refused to ever bother with them. A wise choice in our opinion, because even Sidious was nearly killed by the ghost of Korriban when he went there demanding knowledge from them. But moving on, the next plan Vader formulated was taking on a secret apprentice of his own. It became clear to him that his own power would never be enough, and attempting to artificially boost it with something else always carried great risk. And so the natural course of action was to have a prodigy of his own to use against Sidious. If he could fight the Emperor alongside someone else, someone loyal, then together they stood a much better chance at usurping him. His opportunity came sometime after Celeste Morn, when Vader had returned to the world of Kashyyyk following rumors of a Jedi resistance leader. There he would fight through waves of Wookiee warriors and face down the Jedi Kento Merrick. During the duel, he sensed a greater presence in the Force nearby. Due to the power's magnitude, Vader believed Kento's master was hidden around and demanded to know his location. But when the Jedi told Vader that his master was already dead, Vader ended his life. But at that moment, his lightsaber was unexpectedly torn from his grasp by a very young boy, the Jedi's son, Galen Merrick. This was the presence that the Dark Lord had felt. He was shocked that such a small child carried so much power. When the Imperial arrives, they prepared to kill the boy, but Vader turned and executed his own men in order to silence all witnesses to this account. Vader would then proceed to train Galen Merrick in secret, giving him the codename of Starkiller. He was not trained exactly as a Sith Lord, but rather as a dark assassin, taking inspiration from the way that Dooku handled his acolytes such as Ventress. He was also candid with Starkiller about his purpose. One day, when he was ready, the two would rise up against the Emperor. This is rare for the Sith. Complete honesty. Darth Vader was fascinated by Galen's potential and did everything in his power to bring out its most destructive capabilities. He trained Starkiller to use his power at a constant 100% maximum. Every force push needed to carry the power of an RPG. His lightning would be as destructive as a thermal detonator. All of this was for one purpose. Vader had finesse, but lacked the power to take Sidious on. The raw power. And so Galen would fill that void of required energy. A blunt force instrument that could match Sidious's raw output, while Vader himself matched Palpatine's technique and planning. As a team, master and apprentice, Vader and Starkiller were two halves of the same whole. The one needed to undermine the Emperor's collective strength. For 17 years, Vader played the long game, focusing on training Galen. This is why we have such a long stretch of time where Vader doesn't attempt anything else against Sidious. He's laying low, allowing Palpatine to believe that he has accepted his place as his apprentice. In reality, Vader was a predator in waiting. He is gearing up for a massive payout that will come in the future. At last, he sent Starkiller on a series of tests to see if he was ready. Galen managed to take out Rom Koda, Kazdan Paratus, and Shak Ti without getting caught, proving his skill and his discretion. But unfortunately, Sidious has eyes and ears everywhere. He discovered Starkiller prematurely and arrived on Vader's Star Destroyer unannounced. He ordered the apprentice to kill Galen to end this scheme and prove loyalty. Starkiller pleaded with his master, telling him that now was the time for them to combine forces and to strike. But Vader was caught in the open. He had wanted to take the Emperor on his own terms, to set a time where he could get the drop on him. Perhaps right then would have been the correct time to act. But if Sidious had got the drop on the two of them, then that meant he had come prepared. Vader knew that the entire Imperial Navy was prepared to fire on the Star Destroyer in case anything went wrong. Either that, or assassins and royal guards were lurking around the corner, waiting for the Emperor's signal. It was not yet time, and the two of them were not yet ready. And Vader knew. Vader knew that his master did not move on anyone unless he was utterly prepared. And so Vader pretended to kill Galen by throwing him around the bridge and tossing him out of the viewport. His near 2 decades of planning and training seemed to go out the window literally. But luckily, the Dark Lord managed to act quickly. He rescued his apprentice from the vacuum of space and had him start acting against the Empire. Vader tasked Galen Marek with starting a rebel alliance that could keep Sidious's attention, while the two of them created a new opening. What Vader did not count on, though, was Galen Marek gaining feelings for his new friends, resenting Vader's abuse and embracing the light. When Starkiller stormed the Death Star, Vader found all of his plans crumbled to dust. He was forced to team up with Sidious to take out Galen instead of the other way around. Frustrated that his plans had come to ruin, Vader was not yet ready to give up on the Starkiller project. He went back to Kamino and had Galen Marek cloned. It took countless retries and subjects before a suitable clone was made of his old apprentice, the one he bred to be twice as powerful and twice as loyal as the original. He gave him actual Sith training this time, allowing him to know the real dark side and its secrets. But the memories of the original Starkiller prevailed in his mind, confusing him and leading him to rebel against his master again. Vader attempted with all of his might to subject Starkiller to his will, even kidnapping his loved one to use against him. But it all failed as the clone of Starkiller managed to use Vader's weaknesses against him. Following the failure of the Starkiller project, the Dark Lord accepted that all of the past 20 years had been a waste. Vader was out of contingencies. Pretty much all of his chips had been bet on Galen Marek, but that had ended with failure. Now realizing that he would truly be under his master's thumb, Vader resigns himself to his fate. His life and loyalty was to the Empire, to the dark side, and to his master. Sidious was just too powerful, and Vader was out of time. We believe that at this point, Vader slips into a sort of depression where he starts going through the motions. His power weakens slightly as the fire of ambition darkens. His inner heat is replaced by a cold apathy. He becomes more machine than man, more machine than Sith. But that all changes when Luke Skywalker gives him another reason to live. The rebel that destroyed the Death Star is revealed to be the son of Anakin Skywalker. Vader figures this out before Palpatine does, and is both infuriated at his master's lies and excited for his future. Now there is a real chance, an apprentice of his own blood. Sidious, of course, discovers the truth through his own visions and orders Vader to take care of it. But the Dark Lord, having learned from his past mistakes, once again decides to play the long game. He manipulates Sidious by implying that he could turn Luke to the dark side, making him an asset for the two of them. By now, Sidious had little reason to suspect that Vader was really wanting Luke for his own means. The Dark Lord had spent so many years fully resigned to his fate, he was now good at hiding his real intentions. He attempted to turn Luke to the dark side on Bespin by first torturing his friends, then instructing him to release his hatred in their duel. Afterwards, he mutilates the boy, before revealing the earth-shattering truth. Darth Vader is his father. But Luke was not like Anakin. He still had so much to live for and so much to care about. He did not turn and believed that death was preferable to embracing the dark. But even after the events of Cloud City, Vader never stopped attempting to pursue and to capture Luke. The obsession became so intense that Sidious began to suspect that there was more to this than meets the eye. Palpatine would go as far as to send his favorite assassin, Mara Jade, to spy on Vader and to kill Luke. Turning Luke to the dark side now mattered less to him than depriving his apprentice of a potential weapon. Now the race was on. Although neither Sith would admit it to the other, Vader and Sidious knew the same thing. They were both after Luke Skywalker. It was only a matter of who would bend him to the dark side first. On the second Death Star, Vader was intensely conflicted about his destiny and what he wanted for Luke. He wanted them both to strike down Sidious, but letting go of his old life and embracing the future was a terrifying prospect. However, he was ready to bend Luke to his own whims. In the novelization for Return of the Jedi, it describes from Vader's perspective how proud he is of his son. He could tell the Emperor was terrified of Luke, and this gave him immense pleasure. But both Sith Lords underestimated the power of the light within Luke. He would be the one who would change things rather than be changed himself. Darth Vader did end up getting what he wanted in the end, but not all of how he pictured it happening. He and his son would not rise against the Sith Lord in a climactic duel of dark side powers, but rather, Vader would sacrifice himself out of love for Luke, and of a hope for a better future. One without the Sith at all. In our opinion, it's really a shame that Vader didn't have any other contingencies or try more often than he did. As a Sith Lord, it's a bad idea to put all of your eggs in a single basket. The dark side is a notoriously treacherous energy and it's known to screw over its users. It's always a good idea to have multiple plans in place. This was how Sidious stayed ahead most of the time. Then again, it was very difficult for Vader to move around just because Sidious could see just about everything he was doing. The Emperor never trusted Vader as far as he could throw him, so he always had tabs on his comings and goings. It's likely that Vader knew this, which was why he only tried a few times before totally giving up. Also, I'm sure seeing 20 years of work go down the drain with Starkiller was also very demoralizing. But what do you think, my friends? Do you think Vader should have tried harder to overthrow Sidious, or would it have made things worse? As always, thank you guys so much for joining us as we do these lore dives, and if you want to see more videos like this one, then be sure to comment down below what other topics you want to see explored. Until next time, may the Force be with you, and have a great day. An area